Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez here inside the Working Against Gravity studios. And today is our 100th episode, so we'll give the horn for that. We also have a couple very special guests joining us for this momentous occasion. We'll get to them in a second. But before we do that, we have to tell everybody about our wonderful presenting sponsor, Working Against Gravity. And as we have mentioned, we are knee-deep in the holidays now. You're getting all kinds of junk food thrown at you. You need some vibranium in front of you to help deflect that a little bit.
You can use
because you could lose all your gains.
Exactly. You could use the frequency very much like Black Panther, rest in peace, uses it to defend himself against Killmonger. And I think one thing that really stood out, we just recently spoke with some of the team from Working Against Gravity, and they revealed an interesting stat that I think is valuable. They said that the people that join nutrition programs during December typically have the most success because they choose to join when they're in the middle of all the holiday craziness.
That's right.
So you know they're dedicated. So what we're talking about is Working Against Gravity's nutrition coaching, the one-on-one. They have two tracks for you, the lifestyle track for those of like Sean or myself that are just trying to keep a few of the holiday LBs off. And then they have the performance track, the same track that athletes like Katrin Davidsar, Brooke Wells, Cole Sager, just to name a few, have utilized to maximize their performance in the sport. And right now, if you guys want to join in the midst of this holiday season and get to working off those holiday sweets, you can go to workingagainstgravity.com, click Get a Coach, and then type in the code ELITE50. You'll get $50 off your first month. And we have another special deal coming for you guys on their coaches certification coming up soon, so be on the lookout for that. Again, workingagainstgravity.com.
Yeah, workingagainstgravity.com. Super happy to have them as our presenting sponsor and use that code ELITE50. All right, today it's a very special day. We were kind of wondering going into the week, like, what we're going to do for today's episode. And then this just beautifully gift-wrapped opportunity
Stack of pancakes
fell into our laps.
Yeah.
And we said, hey, why don't we ask those two to be on the show? And they obliged, and those two are Marston, Sawyers, and Heber Cannon, the Buttery Bros. What's up? Give it to them again.
Oh, good to be here. Good to be here.
They get a double horn.
Double horn.
Man.
How you guys doing, man?
Triple up. Great.
Yeah?
Yeah,
that's
we're doing
good.
real good. You know, I'm highly caffed right now. Just ready to talk to you guys.
Light
Let's roll it.
fuse.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And for those of you who maybe joined us late in the Talking Elite Fitness journey, Marston and Heber were also on the very first show as well. That episode you can go back and find. It's called The State of the CrossFit Games. It was our first episode.
We recorded that twice.
We recorded that twice with a couple sections re-recorded as well.
That was in my kitchen.
It was in
your kitchen.
In Marston's kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
We weren't even sure mics were working.
no, it was we were flying blind. It was like Luke with the blaster shields down in his X-wing. But that actually happened the week of January 10th, the week before Wodapalooza 2019. So we are just about 23 months out from the start of this podcast, and now we're 100 episodes in. So happy to have you guys.
Congratulations, guys.
Stack
Wow,
it.
that's huge.
Dairy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you guys are doing. So first off, you're in Northern California. Why?
We're here to interview some people for our upcoming documentary about the 2020 CrossFit Games.
Yeah, so right after this, we'll interview the both of you and then possibly go down to Santa Cruz and interview some of their staff down there. And
then we're going to go hang out with this handsome, vascular dude.
Oh, my gosh. He's
That-
so
that-
handsome.
That can only I know who that is right
He
away, even if
glistens.
you didn't tell me beforehand, because there's one man he's handsome and he is vascular, and
Who
he's
is that?
in the Northern California region, and his name rhymes with Arcus Philly.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Marcus
Milley.
He's really good at social media, too. I've just been watching him work out.
The way you said that.
But,
were you just watching him work out, or was something else happening?
But it's like having a perfectly good steak, right? You just got to put it out there, and then people are gonna like it. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be dressed up nice, but people know when they see something good.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to, because Tommy mentioned the first episode that we recorded, and obviously a lot has changed for us, a lot has changed for you guys, but going back to that time when we were still trying to, we were trying to figure out where we fit in this whole thing. What was it like for you guys trying to figure out where you were going to fit in whatever the CrossFit Games season was eventually going to look like?
Well, I think like one of the first things we did was we went to London, and that was like probably one of the first episodes that we did. We went to London because the Open was going to be kicking off there, and we figured that if we could pull off a good recap or have a really good piece of content to show the very next day, that would be a really good I guess like plant the flag that we were like making content and that it would be high quality and fun and entertaining. And I think that was like a really pivotal moment for us because we were just trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out how to bring on sponsors, how to involve athletes, and just kind of get the word out there that we're still going to be making content.
Yeah, I would say, especially during episode 1, I think we were just finishing up because that was a week before Wadapalooza, right?
Yep.
So we had just finished, or we were in the middle of editing our first episode of the Buttery Bros ever, which was Acid Bath. And so we filmed the intro to that right around that time, and then went to Wadapalooza and uploaded that video before Wadapalooza. So during episode 1 of Talking Elite Fitness, we had no clue what that was going to look like, other than we wanted to make a 2019 documentary, and I really wanted to document our journey making that with a YouTube show, not realizing that would probably be more fun.
Yeah. So like we set out to make, we were going to do a series in 2019 of all the regionals and stuff like that, or the sanctionals. And then along the way, we just kept making these Buttery Bro shows, and it turned out to be like, wow, this thing's actually a lot of fun, and it's given us a lot of opportunities, and it's a lot more fulfilling for us than just what we've been used to. So we kind of chased after that and brought on some sponsors, and it's been just nothing but a fun, and it's almost been 2 years. That's what's crazy. I'm sitting here, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. And obviously it's been a lot of growth and a lot of reflection on where we've come from. But I think we're in a really good place despite all the craziness of 2020.
Yeah. And it's funny because you mentioned some things there about like, just trying to get out there, and you have maybe a broader idea of some things you want to do, but you just kind of jump into it. And I feel like that's a pretty common theme you hear from people jumping into a creative process after a big change, after uncertainty or loss or anything like that. And I'm curious where along the lines did that like light bulb moment happen for you guys when, all right, we have an idea, we're going to just get out there and start doing it. And then you kind of had that where you maybe didn't know that it was going to turn out all right, but you knew that you were on the right track.
Immediately after we put up Acid Bath for our first episode, I remember being in the hotel at Wadapalooza, and we went and worked out. We posted it, and I was like, all right, man, it's like 9 p.m. I haven't worked out today. I'm going to be a jerk in the morning if I don't work out. So let's go work out.
He gets angry.
Yeah, I get
Oh, yeah.
So we went downstairs and worked out. I remember thinking on the way down to work out, like, maybe we'll get like 1,000 subscribers by like a week from now. We had 1,000 subscribers by the time we finished working out.
Oh, wow.
And then there were some other metrics where like you have to turn on monetization on YouTube, and we started to hit those metrics way earlier than I expected. And within a week, we had 20,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. And I didn't think like, oh, wow, this is going to be, this can be its own successful thing. But it immediately showed me that there was a support and a want to see content like this from our community. And so I knew like we could figure out how to make it work, but I didn't know for sure. And we didn't really like, we were still trying to just figure out how to financially make a 2019 movie without losing just tons of money and going in tons of debt to make it. And so it wasn't until really around June that we found like our stride in really just being able to rely on YouTube to be able to put us wherever we needed to be. As opposed to like at that time, we were not only just doing YouTube, but we were doing commercials for brands as well. So like we would go to a location, shoot a commercial, shoot a Buttery Bros show, go to a regional or a sanctional event that same week and shoot a sanctional event and come home. And after, 3 days of no sleep, try and direct another commercial. And it was just like, it was too much.
Yeah, I remember there was a few there where we'd go to like an event, and then I think we booked the very day after the event, and we'd stay up all night to try and edit those episodes. And then you'd show up on location and you'd be like, all right, man, let's go to work. Let's make a commercial here.
Yeah, like we got home from Rogue Invitational and went right into a commercial for a brand, and it was gnarly. And we pulled off a great commercial, but it was taxing on personal life, and it was taxing on like it wasn't sustainable. And so it wasn't until like June where it was like we can do just the Buttery Bros and be very successful with this.
Yeah, and just hearing you guys describe we get to see it firsthand, the work ethic and the hours and the things that go on behind the scenes that people don't necessarily always see. But the flip side of knowing you're on the right track is in between then, between January and June, has to be moments of doubt or moments of uncertainty. What were those moments for you guys, and how did you kind of combat that to be able to put in the long hours that were just most people, to be honest, it might kill some people.
Yeah. I feel like we just got, well, for me, I mean, I feel like we were kind of just like forced out of the nest, and it was, or out of the nest and into the water. And I was kind of like, felt like I was like treading water, trying not to drown for a while. But I knew that like what we did was valuable, and what we did was, could be packaged in a way that would be attractive to sponsors and stuff like that. And along the way of always like working for CrossFit and all these years is like we met all these really great people that were really talented. And so right along the way, like Julian Marquez, he does all of our graphics for our show. He was like, dude, I love what you guys are doing. How can I help? How can I, contribute to this? And then we brought him on, and he's been doing graphics on our show ever since. And so now, I mean, it's just kind of been a lot of, I guess, trial and errors, but knowing that it was going to work out, I just believed in it.
Yeah, that's a testament to you guys too, that like talented people want to work with you, right? So even if you don't have the product laid out, that's almost like a vote of confidence externally that I feel like can supercharge you at times.
Yeah, for sure. But it's also just relationships, right? Like it's just people that we've talked to and worked with for years that enjoyed our collaborations in the past and wanted to help us out moving forward. So we've had great success with that.
Yeah, it was almost like, when you drive by a billboard and it says like your ad could go here. Yeah. Like that's what we were trying to do in those first episodes. Yeah. Like we were like making graphics packages with like these sponsors and like see, this could be all yours.
So we legitimately did that. Like I was like, Julian, make up a graphic for this brand specifically. Don't spend too much time because we're not getting paid for it, but I just want to send it to him as an example. And we sent it to him, and they actually didn't even, they were like, no, we're going to pass, but we'd love to do next week's. And I was like, well, next week's, it's not going to be as good. Trust me.
We're living week to week here.
Yeah. So what was it like for you then, you guys going from, hey, we're just going to go shoot some stuff and put it together to okay, now we have a business on our hands. How did you manage that transition?
That was that was probably the biggest learning curve for me going through this whole thing was like, was figuring out the business aspect of it. Like not only did I have to figure out what I was going to do for a living, but I basically had to learn the law. I had to learn the language. I had to learn business and negotiation deals, which I'd never done before. And so basically during the open of 2019, that's where we really cut our teeth in bringing in brands to work with us and figuring out, okay, what's too much? What's a nice little sweet spot? And then how much do we charge people to be a part of it?
Right.
I feel like that last part is a difficult spot because, I mean, you have the foresight and understanding and belief in yourself, right? And you don't want to, and something we run into all the time, like for live broadcasts, is that you don't want to make concessions on what you think you're worth. But there is a fine line between like, do I got to prove myself again to these people? And then does it change that? Reflecting on that, was there any moments where you're like, yeah, maybe we did that wrong, or we didn't handle that right, or I wish I would have done that better? Or do you feel like for the most part, you guys hit a pretty nice groove?
We found a nice groove, but it was also just managing expectations. And so figuring out, okay, what are, and that's really like just communicating with people and figuring out what are you trying to get out of this and how can we help you so that we're both happy. And so that was figuring that out pretty early on and figuring out like how to sell. Like a lot of brands would come on and be like, hey, we want to be a part of that event. And that's what we're interested in. And I'm like, well, that's 6 weeks away from now. And everybody wants that, and it's going to get the same amount of views as the 4 videos we're doing before that. So what are you after? Are you after justifying the expenses that you've already put into that event, or are you trying to get more eyeballs on your product without other people interfering with it? And so that was kind of an interesting paradigm to figure out, like, why are you so interested in this one thing and why not these other things? Okay, so how do I make these other things more valuable, and how do I sell these to you guys so that you understand why I see that they're valuable? And we hit a really nice stride with that just after a few months and a few episodes.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. Is at what point did you guys say, okay, we have the content, we have the business side figured out, now we're humming, now we're doing what we want?
Well, I think that we just, once we figured out that, like long-term relationships were a lot more valuable for us, because then, and I think a lot more valuable for brands, because like what we didn't want to do is be like, hey, we're with this company, and then the next week be with somebody that's like their competitor and just kind of flip-flop. And so we wanted to be able to like pick brands and things that we believed in that wanted to be like part of the journey and come along with us and help us grow. And once that started happening, and once we started to be able to like have more regular recurring sponsors, that's when everything started to shift. And because for a while there, it was like, okay, we just got to find a sponsor because we're going to this location next week and we need to be able to pull X, Y, and Z off. And it kind of took a little bit of the stress of that. And then just let's go be creative and let's try and, incorporate these brands in the best way we can. And I remember like pretty early on, we didn't have any apparel or anything like that. And we were at this event and we met Ken, who does all of our stuff, the Sherpa. And he was like, hey, do you think we could put like your shirt in one of my my subscription boxes? Because he does like a subscription box. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, we don't have a shirt, Ken. And he's like, well, I can make you a shirt. And I'm like, great. That sounds like a great idea. And so he did that, and the box sold really well, and it did really well. And we're like, hey, do you think you could just like do this for us? And I don't think that he wasn't in the business of like making shirts for people, but
he is now.
He sure is now. Yeah. So I mean, that's what's cool is like, not only like did it help us a lot, but it helped him a lot, and it's created a business for him. And so now it's become like our merchandise stuff is doing really well, and we're really, really happy about that. And it's been a great relationship. And that was something really early on that kind of flipped a switch on like a whole nother aspect of what we could do from a merchandise and branding aspect.
And the fact that people want to buy it, right?
Yeah.
They want to buy it.
Yeah, they
and
want to
wear
be in
it.
the Butter Gang.
Yeah.
So like it gives the people that want to support us a way to support it, and then them to put our brand out there and be proud to be wearing it. Mm-hmm. So it's a really fun way to interact with the community that you build through these crazy platforms.
Well, I know that when I saw someone wearing one of our shirts for the first time, I was kind of blown away by the fact that really, okay, that's awesome. Like, what was it like for you to you see people now running around all the time with Buttery Bros stuff, and
you've got me and Marston on the back of T-shirts doing a litter box,
yeah,
dressed as characters, or the shirt I'm wearing now where we're blowing up a bicep, like
get that bump,
like it's absolutely kind of ridiculous that people want to wear these things that I find kind of humorous and fun, and I'm totally honored and blown away that people want to support in that way.
Yeah.
Like I love it. I think it's just it's a really fun way to interact.
And it's funny just because over time, there's a lot of things that start to become like regular occurring phrases or sayings or things that happen on our show. Mm-hmm. And those turn into a shirt. And that's great. I mean, like, I never would have thought that me like playing air bongos would have eventually turned into me like doing a litter box, which I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you, but it turned into something. And
it's a
now,
movement now.
Yeah, now it's got it's got its own P.O. box.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things you mentioned is that like it's a fun way to interact, and I think fun is a key element of your guys' style.
Yeah.
In the thing that in what you emit on air and how you carry yourselves through the vlog and everything. And I'm curious because obviously it is your own style, but are there other in this like this age of content creators, and you can kind of you can pull inspiration from so many ways because there's so much access to information. I'm curious if is there any content creators that you guys personally pulled some inspiration or creativity from to kind of help craft your own style for the vlog?
I mean, like I watch a lot of different stuff. Like I like Peter McKinnon, Casey Neistat, all those types of guys. But I thought that like obviously CrossFit athletes are pretty serious in their day-to-day routine and in their regimen and everything like that. And I felt that me and Heber could do a good job of bringing like a little bit of lightheartedness and some humor to that. Mm-hmm. So we could almost like pop into a training session with an athlete, get to like see how intense that is, and then flip the script and go eat ice cream and ride scooters or go on jet skis and wave runners. Like, because they're not just going to be going and doing that because they got a long day of stuff to get done. So I feel like this kind of like slapstick, like we're fans, super fans, but we're also creators, and being able to kind of expand on all different aspects of fitness has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think looking at YouTubers or content creators, I've done more research since starting the channel than before. Mm-hmm. Before it was just like I've always said the mantra like create what you would want to watch. Yeah. And so there's not anyone really creating that type of content to that quality in the CrossFit space outside of what we were doing at CrossFit. Mm-hmm. But I've learned a lot watching like Craig Ritchie or watching Obese to Beast or watching Peter McKinnon or Sam Colder. There's some incredible talent out there.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest lessons I think I learned pretty early on, and not just doing this, but while working for CrossFit specifically, was I always wanted to have a big red camera. I wanted to have the best camera I possibly could and make it always look as cinematic as possible.
That always stood out to me about you. I remember that.
But then and I remember working with some people, and I would be like, maybe we put a GoPro here, and they'd be like, no. This is a better commercial than a GoPro. We got to stick with 8K cameras. And then, but watching like Casey Neistat's filming stuff on his iPhone, and as long as the story is there, sometimes the quality of the image can suffer, and if it helps the story, you got to do things in service for that. And so, taking everything from Peter McKinnon, who will shoot on an 8K thing, to an iPhone, I became a lot more comfortable with that, and I encourage anyone that asks me like, "Hey, what kind of camera should I get?" I was like, "Whatever one you're going to use."
Yeah.
And so I'll shoot stuff for our show on my iPhone, or I'll shoot it on a GoPro
Or VCR.
Yeah, or a
Can you shoot on a
VCR.
VCR?
You can record.
now.
You can record, yeah.
And you can use that as content. So yes,
The best tool is always the one you use. That's
Exactly.
good. It's funny because you mentioned this, Marston, just a second ago, about you see the games athletes and how regimented you are, and then you guys add another element to that by going and doing these other things as well. And I think by doing so, and kind of processing this as we go, you have effectively framed the poles of the community, right? You've in one show put one end of the spectrum in terms of like super regimented, I'm going to use my fitness for this application, and then there's the other side of the lifestyle factor where our fitness allows us to go do these other things as well. And so now you give people space to kind of fill in the gaps in between and find where that fits, but also showcase the full spectrum. But yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like it's been like our show is pretty fast moving and it's pretty high energy and it doesn't like drag too long. And I feel like that's just kind of like, I don't know if that's just the attention of me as an editor and me as like a viewer. Like I like to have it constantly moving and something changing, and we try to incorporate a lot of different segments into our show. So it's not just in one location. So like for example, like we started this show that we're filming right now in Salt Lake City with Chase Ingram, and then we flew here. We'll be with you guys, and then we'll go film with Marcus Philly tomorrow. So handsome.
So handsome.
Gosh,
So hot right now.
yeah, you could eat sushi off that guy.
Not saying we are.
No, but you could if you wanted to.
Definitely, Caterpillar roll.
We were talking a little bit before we even started here about just the year that was in 2020, and I'm just curious how you guys found yourself navigating through all the changes and still being able to crank out content when everything got canceled.
Yeah, like obviously, like we had a lot of things planned. Like everybody, like we were gonna go to Water on the Waves, and we were gonna go to Indonesia, and we were gonna go to. Like we went to a lot of places. Portugal, yeah. We went to a lot of places like prior to all that going south. But I think that like when it all happened, I was like, well, shit. I guess I could like work at the grocery store, Father. Because I was like, that's the only job it seems like it's gonna last through this. But then we like
grocery store.
and then. We had to be creative, so we obviously shot the 2019 movie, but we had a lot of footage that we just didn't use, and so we were like, how can we incorporate some of these like characters that we just kind of killed off in the story? And so we would just kind of FaceTime into some people and ask them questions about like, hey, what about this event? And kind of have something to show there. And then when we weren't doing that, we were blowing up watermelons and doing dinosaur toothpaste science experiments. We bought lab coats.
Yep.
You get creative when you have to,
It's like two teenagers just playing in the backyard.
Yeah.
That's really all it is.
Yeah, no power tools. And then along the way, during doing all that, I guess we caused some, like we got attention from dancing with Matt Fraser's truck. So we had like a fully wrapped Ford of Cookville sponsored truck, and every time we'd see it, we were like, is that Matt Fraser's truck? You think what I'm thinking?
And we go dance in front of it,
Yeah,
which is what you do. So if you ever see Matt Fraser's truck, always get a dancing, boomerang on it.
So a local dealership was like, hey, so I keep seeing you guys dancing in front of Matt Fraser's truck. Do you think I could give you guys a truck and you could do that in front of my truck? We're like, well, yeah. And so we had our guy, Jesus Chuchan Blues.
Shout out to Chuchan
Yeah,
Blues.
he designed us a killer wrap for our truck, and then we like set out on the road right around the time that the whole CrossFit world was blowing up, and we did a road trip all the way to Louisiana. Is that where we went?
Kentucky,
yeah,
and,
all the way
and
there
down to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, and all the way back. So that gave us like some content that wasn't just
Backyard
science
shenanigans.
experiments and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a great year. Besides, it's been a bad year.
I have a vivid memory. I think it was the soda with the Mentos. Was that
the truck episode where we got the truck.
Was that in your parents' driveway?
Well, I mean, it's also my driveway.
Yes.
I'm living with my parents in their basement, so thanks for bringing that up.
Well,
There's no shame in that.
Not anymore soon,
yeah,
right?
I move out next week, but
Those are
I got some
roommates.
really old roommates that just won't leave me alone.
Yeah.
Thinking about getting CB
Always want me
radio, talking to other car
fix
beds.
their phones and their computers and asking me what channel is Netflix.
What's the Wi-Fi password? I told you 7 times, Dad.
Oh yeah, I just have that picture of the bottle exploding and like Mav and Finn like and your dad just walking out like Pop's just what the heck
Shaking
is
his
going
head.
on?
Yeah. What does my kid do for a living? My other kids went to Harvard.
I'm
This kid,
37.
I'm 37. Dad, leave me alone.
And it's gone.
Oh, no, that's the wrong one.
You are all weirdos.
So one thing that I've always been curious about, and I think I have an idea, but for other people listening at home that see the high energy that you guys put out into the world, what are some things outside of that when the cameras are off or when you're not making the vlog that you guys utilize besides training to kind of recharge your batteries?
Ooh, for me, it's a few things. Like training is definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Being with my family is another one where if I can just take a couple, I always try to do dude's day with my kids where I leave my phone, we go eat lunch. It always happens to have ice cream and video games and some sort of workout that I put them through. And then before quarantine, we would always try and find like an activity, like go to the zoo or go do something where it was outside the house. Been on a few hikes with them. So that's a big one. And then for me personally, like living in Salt Lake, you've got this inversion. So the winter can be kind of gnarly because it's got, for those that don't know, it's like the Salt Lake Valley has mountains on either side of it, and the pollution and clouds will just get trapped in that valley. And so you're just covered in smog and smoke basically all winter unless a storm blows it out or the sun gets hot enough that it'll burn it off. And so I learned last year that I have to have a ski pass. Sorry, babe, but I have to go skiing at least 2 or 3 times a week so I stay happy. And so, so getting up in the mountains and just being out of society, and I went up 20 times last winter, and probably half of them were by myself, just cruising down the slopes. And to me, that helped recharge me a lot during what normally living in Salt Lake in the past has been kind of a gnarly winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just get outside, get out into nature. That's what's
neat.
It's super neat, guys. And what's cool is like we live right at the mouth of the canyon, so you can just pop over, go on a hike, go on a run. I take my dog on a walk. I live right next to a park. Riggs loves it. He, loves the scent of ass. So he's free to run around.
What?
He's free to go out and sniff other dogs. Yeah.
Oh,
So he loves it too.
What do you mean 2?
So besides that, I'm a big lake and boat guy. We did an episode with Brooks Like up at his lake house in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and mainly just hanging out with other people that are, motivating or way smarter. Like what's funny is like we've been in meetings lately that we're just with these brilliant minds, and I'm sitting there going like, man, you guys are smart. Like I make videos about you and about this space, but I'd be like, I'm just pleased to be like having conversations with these types of people now, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What have been some of the more memorable experiences that you guys have had this past year?
Well, I mean, I always say Aruba and then Tribal Clash, which RIP. I don't know if that event's happening again.
Tribal Clash was so fun.
You guys won too,
Yeah,
right?
we
One game
Disney
wins.
Moment, yeah.
Disney Moment.
We are the 2020 world champions of Tribal Clash.
Wow.
That's the only event that
And you might be the only ones apparently. That,
Yeah.
what you're saying is.
Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to Andrew for a while, but I think that I don't know if that event's happening again. If it does, it was such a fun and awesome event. And one of the coolest experiences was beating all those people down in Australia. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we show up in Australia, and first thing Heber goes is like, "Hey, so I got this thing. We're gonna jump out of a plane tomorrow."
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean we?
You mean like to make up for maybe a skydiving trip
Yeah.
in Dubai that you
Yeah,
could have
Marston-
gone on?
Okay, here's the thing.
Yeah.
The thing. I'll tell you. I don't know if I was ready back then. Like, I wasn't ready to jump out of a plane. Come, like, you know,
For those that
prior
don't
to the
know-
Buttery Bros and everything, and I feel like I grew along the way, and I got to the point where like, yeah, you could jump out of a plane. I could do that now. And I'll be honest. As we were jumping out, it looked like you were trying to put a cat in a bathtub.
He's just pressing against the doors.
And we jump out, and I'm enjoying it, and it's good. And then we pull the parachute, and then the guy's like, "Here, grab these straps here, and pull down this one to your right hip." And we started spinning, and I'm like, "All right, you take these straps, dog." I'm super sick. And the second we landed, I yacked.
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
But you did it.
But he did.
But we
it.
did it, and then
Nice.
we went and competed on the beach there in Australia, and it was like
Wollongong, yeah.
such a cool event because it was all just like they have these giant like wood structures, and it's a lot of like atlas stones and no barbells. You're working out in a bikini or
Budgie smuggler.
a budgie
as they call
smuggler.
it.
Yeah. And honestly, we went out there just to have fun and to have a good time, and we met a bunch of people and some people that were like really experienced and that had competed in this before, and we just kind of like got into this crazy competition, and there was this tug of war that lasted like 8 minutes, and I thought I was gonna die because it's like once you're like fully fatigued and you're getting pulled on a rope, you're like, come on, man, somebody quit. And then at the end of the weekend, like we crossed the finish line, they handed Heber this giant like black mask, and like he held it up, and he's like, "We won! I won!"
Oh man, two things. One, I remember exactly where I was when I realized you guys won. I was in the bathroom taking care of business, and there was an audible. Tiffany could hear it from the other side. And me go, "What the expletive?" And they're like, "She's like, what?" And I'm like, "These bastards won the whole damn thing." She's like, "What are you talking about?" And,
Dude,
you know,
it was like a Disney moment or an Air Bud movie or something.
We had no right to be winning that workout, to be winning that event.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if people don't know, I am forever holding skydiving over Marston's head because we had a chance to go skydiving in Dubai, where you would like land on the palm, like the world famous Palm Islands, and Marston nixed it.
Yeah, man.
Not just nixed
wasn't
it.
ready.
He
Yeah.
held, he
Wasn't
held,
ready.
He held the keys to turn
Yes.
on that car
Yeah.
and just put them in his pocket.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, man. I think it's cloudy today.
I never got back to her. I was like, what?
Yeah,
Oh man.
I squandered that opportunity. But now knowing what I know now, like I try to seize those types of things, and I look forward to those types of like discomforting opportunities. Yeah, I'll ride a bull.
Do you ever just? I mean, I'm sure you do. Like you're in the middle of some of this stuff, and you go, "I'm getting paid for this. Like this is my
yeah.
job. Like
Yeah.
how cool is that?"
Absolutely,
100%.
It's I find that like on a weekly basis, I'm sitting there going like, holy shit, this is my job. I can't believe that like, this whole visualize it and maybe like you build it and it'll come or something like that. Whatever that.
Whatever that mantra is.
Whatever that mantra is.
Whatever
Kevin
that positive
Costner,
mantra is.
baseball movie.
You combine like
Waterworld.
Field of Dreams and like 4 other movies.
Yeah.
But
So when I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is incredible because I could have never imagined like doing exactly what we're doing and having just an absolute blast doing it, and it's working and we're having fun, and I'm fortunate, very fortunate.
what are some things that maybe you guys are on? And we'll talk about the doc in just a sec. But what are some other things like on the horizon that you guys are looking forward to maybe getting back to, getting involved in, or hope for yourselves as professionally going forward?
Good question. I mean, I live a quarter mile at a time.
Yeah. You never had your
you
car.
You asked us what we had planned out, and I'm like, dude, we hardly plan more than 10 days out because we'll finish an episode and then turn around and be like, okay, what do we do on the next one? And sometimes that gives us a lot of freedom to be able to take opportunities and seize opportunities because we don't have plans, and we can be like, oh yeah, we can go do this. But because of COVID, we've just been very, very short term and nothing super long term. And so we have a couple things scheduled out for 2021. But for me, it's getting back out and traveling and going to exotic locations and meeting really cool people around the world.
Flamingos.
And hanging with flamingos. Yeah, I want to get back to my boys down in Aruba.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to
a flamingo.
Javier.
Yeah,
you
man,
know?
that was great.
So, getting back out to traveling internationally is something that I'm really looking forward to once restrictions go up. Like, I would hate to go to a country and then have to come home and be quarantined for my family for an additional 2 weeks on top of whatever time I was away. So, so right now we're not doing them.
But prior to that, like, I feel like this last, like, right before the games was like the gnarliest stint of travel and like risk, because like every time you travel, you're like, it's kind of risky getting on a plane and intermingling with all that stuff. And we literally like hopped on a flight, went to Atlanta, filmed with Noah Olson, produced an episode there, drove to Nashville, hung out with Brooke Wells, and then went down to Cookeville, hung out with Matt and Tia, did an episode there. Also met up with Haley Adams. And at that point, we're like, are we good? Should we go home or should we like keep trucking on? And like this is where it started to become kind of funny, because we were like, let's do one more. Let's go to Boston and be with Katrin. So we went to Boston, hung out with Katrin, and produced an episode there. And then we were like, all right, I think that's probably good. We should probably go home, you know.
And then I texted Tommy and I said, mega bed in Portland. Let's go.
Yeah, so then we
Tommy flew up and picked us up in a Maserati.
Oh man, yeah, it was a classy move. We hung out with Justin Medeiros and his coach Adam, and then at that point we're like, shit, we've made it this far. We might as well go to Vegas, see Carrie Pierce. And so we went and did that, and then basically flew home the next day, and then got in the butter truck and drove all the way to California, and then made a documentary. So it was like 2 weeks of just nothing but like, you know, full speed ahead. And those are fun, like, just because like when you're kind of just flying at the seat of your pants and like trying to make everything go off without a hitch. And we did, and we were able to go to the games and produce. I think we produced 4 episodes, and we were doing one every night. And that's what's cool, is like through all this is like we've been able to like go back to all of our friends that we've worked with for all these years. So like Ian Wittenberg was doing the rough cuts for all of our episodes, and then we have Mark Billingsby, who worked with us at CrossFit. He's doing the rough cuts with Ian on the 2020 movie right now. And then various other people, like, you know, like
we've met and worked with really talented individuals throughout the last year too. So we had an awesome team of people working with us at the CrossFit Games, and people that I would have never had communications with before, but have reached out and wanted to work with us because they're excited about what we're doing and are excited about the opportunities. And so we've just built a really cool network of people, and to me, that's probably one of the most exciting things about what we're doing.
Yeah, I love your rationale for that whole trip. You basically described how Forrest Gump ran across the country.
Yeah, and then back.
He's like, well, I got this far.
Tired
Turn around, go back.
Yeah, might as well, you know, go to the edge of
I
Alabama.
definitely, by the end of the games, I was like, I think I'll go home.
So speaking of the documentary and the games, I mean, I'm sure there was some question. First, there was a question if the games were even going to happen.
Yeah.
So you guys had to deal with that. But once that decision was made, how did then the decision get made that, okay, we are going to do a documentary, and then you two are going to be in charge of it?
So we've been planning on doing a documentary about the CrossFit Games since we finished the 2019 one. I want to say Dave texted me and said, after I sent him a screener for the 2019, he said, I loved it. It was awesome. I want to give you guys access to the games for 2020. Let's figure that out. And then I think, so we just kind of went with the assumption that we were going to making a 2020 documentary. But then all the changes happened in June. It's under new management, and who knew if their new media directive was going to be open to outside people coming in and making a documentary. And so I think eventually Dave wrote me again and said, hey, do you want to make a movie about the 2020 games? It would be different than what you did in 2019, but we'd still like to work with you on it. And I said, absolutely. Who do I need to talk to? And then it was just kind of like radio silence for a while, because I think they were figuring out how the games is going to happen. I think they were figuring out stage 1. And it was only like a week before stage 1 that they finally got back to me and said, hey, this is what we want to do. Are you on board with it? And we went back and forth because we had some different conflicting ideas. But we eventually, we were like, hey, look, we see this as a really good opportunity. We see the new direction that the company's going. We've been covering this sport anyways for the last 5 months. Like, it makes a lot of sense for us to collaborate on this, and let's figure that out. And so we let our manager handle working with HQ on the logistics. And I just said, hey, you guys are going to figure out all the fine print. I'm going to go to work and make the movie. And unless you guys tank this deal, we're gonna go ahead as if this is happening, and that happened probably a week. That happened after about 2 weeks after stage 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So not very much time.
No. And I think that kind of falls in line with the general process of all of that coming together, because it felt like, especially with the ever-changing landscape, it was like touch and go there for a little bit. But.
Yeah, but even if the CrossFit Games didn't happen, there's still a really interesting story to be made about what's going on this season.
Yeah.
And we had been in all the right places to be able to figure out how to tell that. And so it's just the icing on the cake that the games actually went off and they were really fun and entertaining.
And you guys had obviously got to be inside the bubble, so you had a little bit different look at the games than everyone else. Is there anything that in particular that stands out that and I don't want you to have to give everything away, but that you think the public needs to know about that experience that maybe you're not going to get from watching live streams?
I mean, there's a lot. A lot of it is just the personal relationships that get established off the competition floor, and that's like how athletes are interacting with one another, what's happening on the bus to and from the venues, what kind of mind games is Matt Fraser playing with the other athletes, and what are they doing to try and stop this slaughter that's happening from Fraser and Tia,
Yeah, some of my favorite things was being behind the scenes, like looking at the map of the run, and you're sitting there and Dave's kind of briefing it to everybody, and this was the day before that they were going to do the I don't know, however far that was, like 3 mile part 1 of 2, and I think he like drops the hammer to like all the judges. He's like, so when we get to the finish line, I'm just going to send them back, and they're going to do it all in reverse. And everybody was like, oh, shit. And, like, you could tell there was like, man, this is like, we got to keep this hush-hush, because, like, you don't want anybody to find out. And that's, like, some of the cool things that happen at the games. They do a really good job of holding their cards close to the chest and not revealing too much until the proper time. And so I feel like that's going to be, like, probably one of the coolest reveals that we've put into a movie, just because the event kicks off and everybody's going, and you're watching athletes run by, and you're like, get it, get it,
Not even halfway.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
I was
you gotta
just,
want it.
yeah, like I was up in the hills, and like I knew Heber was down at the finish line, and it's like I was pulling up the feed on my phone, and you're just sitting there, you're like, oh man, it's like, here comes the season finale. Here's the reveal. Yep. Like, I feel like those things are going to be really cool to be able to share those with people and actually show the whole secrecy of the whole event. And also like just how, the COVID measures and all the different protocols there, and trying to make it as safe as possible for the athletes and all the staff and everybody involved.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like there were some breadcrumbs out there for people that were looking. Like I remember seeing the time cap for that event, and kind of, like it's that meme of like, that woman like thinking with all the math equation. I'm like, that just seems like a really long time cap for a 5K.
Yeah,
and they have to do something else, and I'm trying to figure out like what the heck it was going to be. I obviously didn't think that they're going to have to run backwards the other direction, but
Yeah, so when did you realize, like watching the broadcast, I don't even know how they played it out on the broadcast yet.
So I had a conversation with someone from the morning chalk up the night before, and I was like, I think they got to do something more than this. And they're like, well, what is it going to be? And I'm like, you don't block off, one of the things that people don't know that the games are tremendous at is sticking to time frames. Like once they set a time cap, this is where you have to fit. It's been, they weren't great at it early on, but in the more modern years, they've been able to kind of fit these time slots, and everything's pretty calculated. Poor Wilson Tang has probably, lost nights of sleep over building that.
President Tang.
Yeah, President Tang over that schedule. So I'm like, they're not going to block off an hour if they're not going to use it. So what could they do? Maybe it's a 2-for-1. Maybe there's something at the end. And then someone had suggested that maybe the route is longer than they thought. And it was just a thought that kind of passed by. But as they were coming down the hill, and they showed it's funny, on the broadcast, they showed a finish line, but it was split. So there was a railing in the middle. And I was like, I'm not going to lie, that looks like a turnaround point. and we're on like this chat, and someone's like, that would be bad. And then as soon as they said that, you see Castro yelling and you see Matt flip the bird, and it was everyone just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
And then aside from that, I just feel like the intimacy of the whole event is what's going to be cool, because like obviously people know what happened, they saw who won and everything like that, but like some of the coolest stuff was like, especially like the first event kicks off and there's no fans, there's no music, you can hear everybody breathing, and it's just like it was almost like this weird, like almost felt like I was King Joffrey, and they were like, I was like giving them the thumb thing.
Yeah.
You just call yourself King Joffrey.
Yeah. Well, I felt like
not a
I
good self-reference.
yeah.
We've had some good ones this show.
But what's funny is like the first event ends, and I remember we were talking about this yesterday in our interviews, but it ends, and I was like looking around, I was like, holy shit, did Noah just take last? And I look, and he's right there, and I'm like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that.
Keep your voice down, Marston.
I'm like, but he did take last. I didn't mean to be like point at
Or the
kicking mine
announcers
down.
commentating, and the athletes
yeah.
can hear what they're commentating
That's
in the middle
the
of their
worst.
event.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah, like you ran into that, right?
Yeah, we ran into, like, I think it was a couple times at the Morgan Hill Outdoor Sports Complex, because
Yeah.
we were right there on the field.
Yeah.
And there's like this great race going on, you know, and obviously you got to get excited because it's like neck and neck, and we're yelling, and they can hear us on the field because the music isn't that loud.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sorry guys if we say something. I hate
Yeah,
when we.
poor strategy. We'll see if it pays off for him, Cotton.
What an idiot!
I'm right here. I'm right here.
What an awful jump in weight. That was just ridiculous. That would have been
It
hilarious.
was definitely strange, man. But it was funny because when you mentioned the turnaround, like I got to see it happen twice because we got to
with
watch them.
Chandler.
Yeah, so we got to watch them in order to sort of fax out all the cameras and test everything out. They had the demo team run it, so it was Panchik, Chandler, and then Danielle Brandon. And Danielle and Chandler didn't know. Saxon did because he had tested the event. So they all go out, and Saxon's just kind of sandbagging it and jogging. And Chandler's like a bat out of hell, and he comes across the finish line, and we watch him, and he's just
Well, but
It
his
was
reaction
awful.
was the best.
Yeah.
He's like, you got to go back. He's like, yes, sir. I was like, that guy is in the military.
yeah, he's dialed in.
And
but
then he sees Saxon and flips him off.
Saxon's
refuses
just
to
like
give him
coming down the
water.
hill. Hey, how you doing, Chandler? Feeling good? Getting
To
ready to turn
Saxon's
around?
credit, he wasn't that far behind Chandler, but he
wasn't,
definitely
but he
definitely played
sandbagged
it. He
He's
definitely
like,
played it.
Yeah. He's like, well, I'll let you go take that win there, buddy.
Oh, man.
What was it like for you guys? Because you're so used to when you cover the games, you have 80 to 160 to 320 athletes you have to cover. Well, now you have 10, and they're going to be there the whole time. So how does that affect the way that you kind of go about approaching it, and then the story that you're ultimately going to tell?
Well, in previous years, we when there's 40, we just always kind of narrowed it down to, hey, we know these 3 to 5 women, 3 to 5 men are going to be key players. And then there's going to be some outside people that jump in, and you just don't really know who those are till the end of the weekend, and you have to flush them out after the fact. So perfect example for a movie we never made, 2018. I got really lucky in that I was like, Laura Horvath, I think she's going to do really well. So I hung out with Laura all weekend and got great content with her. But usually you don't pick that type of personality to come out. So like Lucas Holmberg.
Holberg.
Lucas Holmberg.
Yep.
Crushes that year. Dalton just happened to be with him a bunch, and then afterwards we went to Sweden and we filmed some stuff with him and really got to know him, and got really lucky that we could flesh out that personality of someone that made it to the podium. But for years past, like you pick the 5 or 6 to 10 athletes, and then just kind of hope that you can get whoever else might be a key factor in that year's story. For this, it just made it simple because we had 10 and we had 5 men, 5 women, but going to, like, on that massive trip we did before the CrossFit Games, we got to 8 out of the 10 athletes, and basically we factored in like who's the easiest flights to get to. And Samuel Quant was a little bit further than just like an easy get out on an airplane within an hour I can be with this person and fly out that night. And then getting into Canada just sounded like a nightmare. So faking America up in the north. I'm just kidding. But so we had good relationships with all these athletes going into the weekend, and that made it very easy to have access to them, and they were used to our presence before we got to the CrossFit Games, and that's a big factor when dealing with athletes who are under the pressure of competition, is making sure that they trust you, and if you can build that trust before they get to that situation, it's very helpful.
Yeah, so I think just being able to expand, on all the characters this movie. I mean, we interviewed all 10. We interviewed almost every coach, and And so I think that you're going to get a little bit more from each athlete rather than just like the guy who won.
Yeah,
that wins every time.
I feel like, and you know, obviously you wouldn't want it under similar circumstances, but like from a macro level, like this year is like a storyteller's, like, you know, for lack of a better term, wet dream, because you're like this. It's a departure from what's typically happened. It's building off of the craziness that was 2019, and then, you know, you have the opportunity to really dig into all of those people because it's been trimmed for you already. And then you get things like things that you haven't had in the past, like the coaches and you know, this change in venue and the intimacy.
And then just the craziness of 2020.
Yeah.
So like there's a different story to tell here than just sport. It's life. It's things that have impacted people around the world on a very personal level that we get to bring to the screen in a really unique and interesting way, with the backdrop being the CrossFit Games. And so it's a really cool opportunity to be able to do this. So we're extremely grateful for CrossFit to want to work with us to do this.
Yeah, and speaking of that, and one thing I wanted to circle back to real quickly, like one of the things I will say that I get asked more than anybody else, like more than anything else when it comes to you guys, is what's going to happen with 2018. Is that ever going to show its face?
We'll see.
Sometime down the maybe make it the lost year, like a decade from now, 5 years from now, because that's
the spectacle year. That's the one
it's the testament to, one, the community, how involved they are and how invested they are. That 2 years removed from it, people are still asking you about it.
What's funny is, like, we would occasionally just send it to, like, a text to Dave and be like, hey, you know that 2018 footage is collecting some good dust. You want us to make that thing? And you know, it kept coming back like, nah, we can't do it right now, or like not that it was like out of his control or something like that. So I don't know.
So let me ask your viewers this question. Would you guys want to see a 2018 movie if we got access to the footage and we could make it?
Yes. I mean,
100%.
I think absolutely everyone, because I think you said it was a spectacle year.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that was the pinnacle of everything at the games. I mean, the events, the production, the whole 9 yards. Like it was, and I think people have been, I don't want to say robbed, but it's like unfortunate that they haven't gotten to see the look that they want to see.
Yeah.
Because of all the hard work everybody put in to get it to that point. Like I feel like your guys, if you made a documentary on that, that would kind of be the ultimate celebration of what that was about.
We pitched some ideas that revolved around that, and I think for the timing of the seasons right now might not be the time, but I would like to think that opportunity could be down the road.
Good.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've always thought is that from the athlete perspective, if I'm Matt Fraser and Tia Toomey, and I think about, and I don't want to speak for them, but this is my own dumb brain thinking about it, but that 2018 is a year where I think about, like, that's one of my banner years.
Yeah.
Right? They threw everything at us. We had undoubtedly the fittest field behind us, and you had, you know, hotshot rookie, you had established people battling back, you had some near misses and things that, and from a storytelling perspective, and like the year you look back and you're like, that was my best year. Like that stands out to me.
Yeah,
like,
and just the visuals too. Like that crit race was really cool.
Oh my gosh.
Like the chaos event, because they came out, nobody knew, and then they had like
Chaos is so cool.
The obstacle course event with the weight vest,
when
and
they both went down side by side.
Matt and Pat dropping from the top.
Dude, the Pat Vellner story in that year alone, like the fact that he fell off that net and was coughing up blood, and then he came back and ended up on the podium taking second.
Dropped the chain on his bike. Like,
yeah, that story alone, I was like, oh man.
There's just so many things that are just gift wrapped in there. Like
Yeah.
you actually probably have to cut. And that brings me to my next question: is that you obviously can't put everything you want to put in there. You'd have like a 7-hour movie, so you ultimately have to leave good stuff out. How do you make that decision?
So that's actually how, back when we worked for CrossFit, the Road to the Games series happened, and how what we do with the Buttery Bros, which is we have freedom to go longer, to have more episodes, to do whatever we kind of want to, because it's not, when you rent a movie, you expect a certain limit. We've always wanted to do a series, but just haven't really jumped into that. We've just kind of been working around doing that for a while. But the Road to the Games was like, hey, we would go to all these athletes to get all this content for the 2015 movie, and we had hours of footage that never saw the light of day. That, like, Julie Foucher's story of her breaking her foot at the games or the regionals and not qualifying, like, that was never really fully fleshed out because it was meant for the documentary, and then it ended on the cutting room floor. So going into 2016, we're like, let's create episodes that lead up to the movie. I think that's a really cool idea. And then going into this, I was like, let's do that, but let's have a constant, and that constant is you and I. And so now we put a lot of those things, some of those things into the Buttery Bros show, but we know like, oh, this is definitely doc worthy. We're going to hold on to that. And then going to the games to really kind of make sure that we weren't double dipping too much. Basically, it was just our experience at the CrossFit Games with a little bit of highlight footage and not really much from the athlete's perspective. So it's a very different type of story. But if you look at like our strength and depth episode, it's very much got a documentary feel to what Matt's experience is going through that competition with us kind of goofing off on the side.
Yeah, it's hard to, like, a 2-hour time window or an hour and a half or 90 minutes or whatever it is, that's really hard to make tight, and to be able to tell all those different stories and have not only a women's competition and a men's competition almost intercut between the two. And I feel like we did a really good job this year with like the Buttery Bros, because I guess we kind of produced like almost like an hour and a half or 2 hours of content.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours of content at the CrossFit Games. That's on top of the documentary that
which is like the behind the scenes aspect of what's going on, like from our perspective. So that's cool that we get to like show that and at least have some sort of lead up to what will eventually be the 2020 documentary. But I've liked the idea of playing with doing a series, but obviously, like, you know, maybe that's not in the cards this year, but I think that like a 6-episode series, like going from, you know, the beginning of the season all the way leading up through the end of the games is cool, just because I think that's kind of what people watch now is like streaming and binge watching and stuff like that.
Well, would you guys watch a series about the 2019 sanctionals that led up to the games?
I mean, past tense, I would have.
I know. What if we put out one now? You know,
I don't know if it's as relevant now.
I think it would depend. I think it would depend on what the new system looks like.
Yeah,
because I think if sanctionals go the way of the dodo and it looks drastically different, then maybe it's kind of hard to say. It's just one of those things. Like what is sanctionals' place going to be in CrossFit history? Yeah. Is it going to be something that was we tried and it was forgotten, or is it that was version 1?
Yeah, and
version
2 could
version
be really
2
cool.
Could be really cool, and then I think there's maybe a historical tie-in that you could do. So I think what the direction ultimately would dictate that for me. There's some moments for sure that I would watch. You know, the first with the 3 episodes you guys did. So Dubai, Wadapalooza, and then Strength and Depth were the first 3. Like, I would watch those. I saw a lot of I got to watch a lot of the clips.
Well, we've basically been sitting on those since the beginning of that season, because that's what we were going to do, was make a series. And then when it turned out that we were going to make a documentary, that all kind of just didn't get used, and we've been sitting on it. So we're in the process of making that right now, and it's pretty close to being done.
We're gonna put those out pretty soon.
Nice. Yeah, like a CrossFit Games rewind.
Yeah.
Because we're like, especially when we were going into quarantine, we were like, okay, we have these things, let's flush them out and see if they can't be relevant. Well, give people some competition footage while they're waiting for.
Yeah, especially just because like who knows when the next time they're gonna have a live event, right? So I was like, at least we can give some people some cool content to kind of just, you know, get us by or something. So hopefully once we get those fleshed out, I think we'll put them on Patreon and people can get them there.
Yeah.
You guys got to recently spend some time with Eric Rosa like we did. We walked away from that experience feeling really good about the future of CrossFit. I'm just curious what your impressions were of that.
They call him a songbird of a generation.
But seriously, you know, that guy can rock.
Dude, it was so crazy.
That
So
guy's
we're sitting in his living room, right? And he's like, should I play a song? We're like, yeah. And then we're like, what song? And he was like, I don't know. Like, I know like 500 songs I could play. I was like, 500 songs? Like, you can't even put that on an iPod.
Yeah.
that is like the equivalent of like, hey, you want to see my marble collection? I don't know. I got like 1,000. It's like growing up. You're like,
dude, and he just like ripped out in some like cover of like a Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
And then he had these like original songs of his own. And I was like, wow, there's layers to this guy. He's not just a...
And then he cooked us desserts.
Yeah, he cooked us some really good desserts. And then, you know, like we threw down with him several times. I mean...
I got into a race with him on the workout that we did.
Tommy did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually met the guy at the games Saturday night right after Happy Star, and he comes over. Like, I go over to introduce myself, and he's like looking at the workout, and he's like, I think I want to do that. And he like looks at me, and he's like, you want to do that? And I was like, with you, sir? Yes. Yeah. This is good rapport.
Yeah.
Do you feel this chemistry?
Oh man, you're like the girl at the dance who finally got got asked by the hot guy. Like I thought you'd never.
And then I
ask.
proceeded to beat everybody in that event, take the win.
Oh,
One
that's
game
a
wins
dub.
straight.
People don't
Dub,
forget.
son.
It's documented.
But well, I mean, we were thinking like, and we talked a lot about it. It's like how just different it was.
180.
Not just him, but everything surrounding him. Like what a just night and day feel it
Oh,
was.
for sure. Like I felt immediately like he was just, I was hanging out with my buddies or my boys, you know, and like we could kind of talk freely and openly. Like whereas before I was like, I felt like I was like a kid at the grown-ups table kind of.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I was playing with my blocks, you know?
I felt like Bobby
We
Boucher.
were over there having a burping contest, and he's
Yeah.
trying to eat steak. You
I
know,
felt like Bobby Boucher raising his hand in Colonel Sanders.
Oh yeah, raise your hand. But the thing that's cool is like he seems to be really open to feedback and how to improve it, and he wants to know where the CrossFit's come up short in the past, and I think that's really respectable because admitting where you know you have weak points in your armor is a way to make it better, and I feel like he's doing everything he can right now to kind of steer the ship in a more healthy and longevity type of direction.
Yeah, for sure. I was trying to think, and like the all of the people that we've met along the way that are around him have given me that similar vibe. David, his chief of staff, and Parisa, who I was stoked to hear that she found out about the job opening to work
Yeah,
with him
from our
through
show.
us.
Sure,
Yeah,
that's
it was like,
awesome.
wow, and, you know, especially she grew up in Santa Cruz, so you know, Santa Cruz native, but it's.
go slugs.
Yeah, there was just this weird, like, I don't know if you guys ever got this at all, but there was this weird moment of like surrealness, like surreality. Is that a word?
Sure. Yeah.
Where it's just like, this is a situation that I'm happy I'm in, but I never thought I would ever be in.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like I felt like there were certain things that we had to do when the changes happened 2 years ago that we had to put in the rear view. Like, okay, this chapter, something like this is not going to be there. And it was weird having to like pull out like Andy in Toy Story, pulling out all the toys, old toys again to like play with. And you're like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. You know?
Toys are Woody is awesome.
Yeah.
Still 6
Yeah.
years later. Yeah. It was. I think for me that happened at the CrossFit Games because it was almost 2 years to the date that I was let go from CrossFit. So I'm there on my 2-year anniversary of figuring out what I'm going to do with my life.
October 15th.
On the
Yeah,
floor
that's
of the CrossFit Games, talking to the guy who had let me go.
Oh man, that was
And
great.
and being like, hey man, so why'd you fire me? You know, like
Dude,
how did that affect you emotionally?
Yeah.
And so like, so to be there and feel welcomed and feel like they were grateful to have us there and especially for the new regime to come in and understand the Buttery Bros because we're wacky, we're out there, and for a professional sport to recognize that we have value and we bring entertainment in a different and unique way while also covering a sport in a typical standard, to have respect from them about what we're doing and excitement about a future was incredibly surreal.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that future, where do you guys think you fit in this new whatever is going to happen? You know, does your business model or your life change at all?
For me, I don't try to think about trying to fit in. I just try to think of what cool stuff I want to do.
Right.
Like what kind of it's always kind of been, especially lately, what kind of lifestyle do I want to have in 10 years, and what do I need to do now to get to that?
Yeah.
And so to continue to have freedom, to be able to continue to create fun content that I want and life experiences that I want to have and relationships that I want to build. So I kind of like look at people and be like, I want to meet that person. What do I need to do to get to meet that person and have some sort of relationship with that guy or that girl and what other fun activities can I do in my life, like bucket list stuff. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and being able to like take advantage, well, not take advantage, but to incorporate our partners that we're partnered with in the Buttery Bros. They have a lot of really cool athletes. Like we just worked out with a Gymshark athlete. His name's Devin Levick.
Yeah,
He
you
did
bear
a
crawled the marathon.
Bear crawl marathon.
He's also
So-
a Whoop athlete.
Also,
Hashtag
Whoop
also,
athlete.
also a
Whoop,
Whoop guy. So it's cool to be able to be like, oh wow, these other brands that are involved in the fitness space have a lot of really interesting people that we want to tell those stories, and we just want to like go experience like what these other I guess specialists have to offer, and it's cool to be able to, I don't know, kind of be like the like the yearbook or something, you know, like
Yeah.
this is like what happened this year, you know, and here's all the cool stuff, you know, like, and I really enjoy being able to like learn from those guys and also just, you know, I did some bear crawls last week.
Kind of building off something you said, Heber, and you may have already answered it just in a different form, but you talk about like, I want to go do that, or I want to do that. Like one of the tools that's been helpful for me is thinking about, and as a child growing up with Adam Sandler, thinking about my happy place. Like, what's my happy place in the scope of work that we do, right? Like, I close my eyes and I see myself doing something that I really enjoy, and like, what is that? And how do I orient myself to that? Like, what, maybe get down to the specific of like, what is your happy place at its purest when you're out doing, whether it's the vlog, whether it's movies, whether it's editing, whether it's whatever it may be.
I think Heber's happy place is slalom skiing behind a boat.
Yeah, that's probably the happiest I've ever been.
It's so funny. Anytime we do a road trip, he throws his ski in the back of the truck and he says, just for insurance.
Just in
You
case.
never know.
Because the one time I didn't this year, we went to Indiana and we're with Rory Kramer, like world famous YouTube star and director of Justin Bieber music videos. And we're on a boat, and I used somebody else's ski, and it sucks. It was his ski. Sorry,
Yeah.
Rory. But it sucked, and my performance was weak.
And you had an
know?
awesome eject, though.
Yeah, that was the hardest fall I've had on a ski in years.
And he had just gotten married, so you can say that was like his wedding gift.
Yeah, that was his honeymoon, basically.
But I don't want to speak for your happy place. What's your happy place?
Well, that is definitely for me. It's I keep going back to relationships and endorphins. So like the endorphins I get after I work out, or a really adrenaline rush filled experience, are times where I'm like, man, I really want to continue doing these things with people that I love to be around. And so like we talked about the Brooks Lake trip up at the lake house. That was just a week filled with fun adventures with really cool and unique people that I never thought that I'd be able to meet and hang out with. And being able to do that with my family specifically on that trip was just extreme. Like it was everything that you could ever want for a life. So yeah, just life experiences with people that I really want to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that. Like he mentioned the Brooks Lake beach house thing, you know, and our lake house. But there was a scene in our show where he was like, "You ever done a gainer?" And I was like, "Well, I've done a half a gainer and landed on my face before." And he's like, "Well, you're gonna learn today." And like my happy place is like getting these opportunities thrown at you, and you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna rise," and I'm gonna rise to the occasion. And I jumped off that roof, did a gainer, and I like landed it, and it was like.
It was pretty awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like I did it. You know, like those are my happy moments when it's like, or like jumping out of the plane in Australia. You know, it's like this show and this lifestyle has kind of like brought these experiences that I probably would have never thought that I was going to have, and being able to like rise to the occasion and just kind of go into it and chase after it, and it's been really rewarding. And that's my happy place, is being able to do that.
Yeah. That's a big area of growth for you in the last 2 years, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like I mean, I've seen it firsthand, but like that's something like maybe 2018 Mars wouldn't have ever.
Yeah, the 2018 Mars didn't jump out of the plane.
So starting this show, I'll just give this little soundbite, which is I had pitched a documentary to CrossFit, and they liked the idea, but we never executed on it. Which was I was always interested in like females' beauty and how they think about like how the standards change and how different cultures have these weird things that they put women into, like the foot bindings or like the neck lock things,
yeah,
or
the
like
ear stretching,
like the torso. And I had this idea where I was like, I want to go study these things, and the contrast and reflect back to a fitness would be how we're changing how women look at themselves and how it's the function, not the physical aspects that really matter. But my pitch was, I want to take Marston and I want to film him do all these women things and just document his suffering for all of our enjoyment and entertainment.
Yep, sounds
And
like a good idea.
So starting this, I was like, I just got to, part of this is just going to be make Marston do all these weird stuff that he doesn't want to do and document the whole thing, because it's going to be hilarious for whoever happens to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, I didn't want to do the acid bath really, but you know, you get Matt Fraser and Chris Hinshaw just barking at you, and everybody's on team.
He can't beat you.
He ain't got you. And then he's like behind the rower, like shouting out his like my split times to Heber. He's like, "Oh, I think you got him."
I did not.
Chris. I have this beautiful visual now of Marston just with all of those gold chains around.
Right?
Guys, it's a little tight, guys.
Like just me on the back of Marston tightening his corset, like jumping on him.
I feel like that's like Marston just becomes Beaker to your professor. He goes, okay, Beaker, you're on fire, but you're doing great.
Well,
You know,
dude, that's kind of like what happened in an episode we did a little bit ago. Like we were sitting there, and there's this girl, Whitney Simmons, and she's a Gymshark athlete, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, how can we incorporate ourselves into her show? And I was like, you know what? I think we should just like wear the females' pants and do a
full booty workout.
A booty workout, like have her put us through the whole thing, And 2018, I probably wouldn't have worn women's butt pants.
I don't think that's the proper term.
That is
that we're wearing.
You know what I mean when I say butt pants.
So funny anecdote about this. We right after that we took a picture. We took a picture of just my butt, and we posted in those pants, in the butt pants, and we posted it to our social media. And we got hammered in the comments by a few people who didn't realize that it was my butt and thought that we were just objectifying women.
Yeah, you're like just
they-
wait.
Oh, really?
Wait till tomorrow.
Then I think most of them messaged the next day when we posted the full picture of whose butt it was, and they were like extremely apologetic.
yeah.
Are you happy
Gotcha.
or sad? now that
Yes, no, yes, no, yes.
So I know you guys got stuff to do, so we'll wrap this up. But the final question I have for you is that 2020 has been a really trying year on everybody. But what have you guys learned about yourselves going through everything this past year?
I guess to just keep creating and still believe in yourself. Like, honestly, when COVID hit, I was like, well, I guess I'll pack up this career.
Yep.
Like, that's it for old Mars.
You were the only one.
Yeah. I was like, who knows where the world's going,
Barber College, here I come.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Eeyore in you, and there's still a little bit of them left. Yeah.
Eeyore is extremely accurate.
Ain't nothing been right in 10 years. But I think just honing your craft and really like leaning into uncomfortable situations. Like over the course of 2 years, I've been super uncomfortable, and like I feel like those are the moments of growth, and those are the things that have made me who I am today. And that's something that I'll like when I approach those situations, and when I feel that like uncomfortable feeling, and I like almost want to resist it and push back, I almost got to be like, okay, there's something here to be learned, and there's something here that will push me in my character, or maybe not, and I'll just fall out of this plane.
Yeah. Sir, this is Wendy's.
Yeah. You're wearing tuxedos to a job that requires you to clean toilets.
So earlier you asked what doubts we had when starting this. And for me, it sounds weird, but I never really doubted that it might be successful. I think I only had doubts about like, will people enjoy our personalities on camera? So when we were first starting, when it was really struggling to get things going, Marston was going through some really personal stuff. And for me, it was just like we never, the hours and the sleepless nights that we put into it in February, March, April, May of 2019, I didn't ever think about how hard those hours were. It was always just such a passionate and almost obsessive drive to continue to create really cool, fun, and unique content that would give me life experiences. And so it wasn't ever doubts. It was just like, okay, I got to do this. And to make it relevant, I have to not sleep tonight so that people watch this first thing tomorrow because it's happening right now. And so when 2020 hits and everything goes south, again, it was just restructuring that. Okay, where do I need to pour my heart and soul and passion into to inspire people on a new way, especially now when they need it probably the most.
Yeah.
And so it was never like, oh, we're not going to be able to do this anymore. It was like now more than ever we need to do this because people need some sort of positive outlet from just the negative, constant cancel culture that's put out there. And so for us, like we never focus on that on our show. It's always just fun, upbeat, crazy, wild things to try and inspire people to find happiness through suffering, and whether that's in the gym or in other areas of your life, like figure out ways to just be happy.
Yeah, man. Well, that's a great way to end this thing, and really appreciate you guys taking the time to do
Thanks
this.
for having
Dude,
me.
episode 100?
Yeah.
Of course.
100!
So, but before we go, just you're working on the documentary. I know you don't have a release date, but you have a target that you can kind of just put out there so people can start getting a little bit excited about the good stuff that's going to happen.
We
in
just say the
2021.
spring.
Yeah, spring.
You know, when
I
spring
would
That's
say
perfect.
The spring.
there's a couple of factors at play right now for the movie that we just don't know. So it could be way earlier than we expected, depending on the distribution route that you take.
Gotcha.
And so spring could mean March, which would be insane. It could mean May. You know,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like that window. Definitely before the CrossFit Games.
That's perfect.
Yeah, we know how seasons work.
But we also don't. Yeah, thanks for explaining that, Heber. We also don't know when the CrossFit Games are next
Yeah,
year,
that's a
right?
good
So
point.
like we're just figuring out based on what the season looks like. We're trying to be as early as possible.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been awesome seeing the success that you guys have had.
You too, guys.
You guys
Yeah,
are working your
likewise,
butts
guys.
off. Thanks. And really looking forward to seeing what 2021 has in store for you. So, yeah, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, guys.